What's up guys, welcome back to Fancy Goldfish Fanatics. Today we're going to be doing an unboxing on the KENTA High GROWTH food, so make sure you stay tuned to find out more. Hey Fanatics family, welcome back. As always, check out those links in the description. Make sure you check out Star Fisheries and let them know you're from the Fancy Goldfish Fanatics family, and they will definitely help you out with any orders you want on any fancy goldfish. Also, remember to check out Jimmy Goldfish USA if you are a viewer from the USA, and use code JimmyGF to get 10% off your order. Also, if you haven't checked it out already, Mixed Fish UK has done a full tour of the Fancy Goldfish Fanatics house on his YouTube channel. I'll try and put a link down below to that video so you can check it out as well. He did a really long, extensive video on all of my tanks, which was really awesome. So feel free to go and check that one out as well. So today is an absolutely great day. I just got a delivery of some food through the door, so I thought what better to do than an unboxing video on it. So I've taken it out of the package. I received it in from John Paul. JP, you know who you are. He is the UK and Europe distributor for this food, and he is a regular poster on our Facebook group. So if you want to get any KENTA, feel free to check him out, and if you can't find him, feel free to just post a post on the group and we will get in touch with you and help you locate some KENTA Gas or KENTA High Growth. So I thought, let's have a little look through this. This isn't a sponsored video, so I am saying exactly what I think, exactly what I feel. I'm going to disclose, I did receive this KENTA for free, so I didn't pay for it, but I can still voice my own opinion, and I'm going to make my own opinion on this food because I haven't tried it yet. And after this, I will be doing a video where I am going to solely feed this to my fish to see if there's any differences, any noticeable difference in growth, in appetite, in mobility, all things like that. And I'm going to sort of try and document that process a little bit, maybe do a few different episodes on it as I feed it throughout the weeks and months to come, and see if there's any difference on the Ryukins. But now we're going to get into the KENTA Growth food, what I think of it, what I think of the ingredients, the nutritional composition, and what I'd recommend you guys to feed as well, and how much to feed. So first of all, we're going to take a little look at the packet. You receive 180 grams in the tub, and I believe the tub is about £13. So it's not the cheapest goldfish food out there. There definitely are cheap alternatives. I'd say it's probably on par with the Saki Hikari food. Just from memory, I believe you get around 200 grams of that food for around 15 to 18 pounds. So it's fairly similar in price to the Saki Hikari food. So it's definitely more of a premium quality food rather than your mid or low range food. So that is something to definitely consider. If they did do some bigger tubs, maybe that would be a bit more cost efficient, but I'm not sure they do that. So that would be maybe something for them to look into, the people who produce it and also distribute it. So potentially that's something to look at. This one is the high growth, so this isn't the gas releasing formula. I did do a video on the gas release formula, and I will put that at the top of the screen either here or here for you. So if you want to check that one out, feel free to. The pellet is a 1mm pellet. I quite like having really small pellets for fancies, no matter if they're young fish or full adult fish, because I believe eating smaller pellets, once those pellets hit the water and start to expand, they're not going to have too much implications and too much problems on the gut of the fish and cause many internal problems and lead to, obviously, we don't want buoyancy issues, especially with pellet foods, because pellet foods can lead to buoyancy issues, swim bladder issues, etc., where the pellets swell up and compress the swim bladder, causing those irregular buoyancy movements. So that is quite nice to see. It has a 1mm pellet. I'd say that would be a ballpark figure to aim for when selecting a food. You don't really want to go too much bigger than that, 1.5 maybe, but 1mm I'd say is an ideal range to go for, down to sort of 0.5mm. So next up, let's see what the blurb says on the food, see what it's talking about. So I'm just going to put a little picture up on the screen so you can sort of read it as I go through it. So it says, KENTA Goldfish food is created for grooming all kinds of goldfish, whether they have head genes or not. I assume that is referring to the wen growth, and if a certain line of fish doesn't have too much wen growth, they are suggesting that this food is going to help increase that hood growth and that wen growth over the fish. It contains a high protein level which can boost the body and the nuchal hump. This kind of refers to that wen growth, and nuchal humps are commonly found on other cichlids like flower horns, for example. It has essential fatty acids with omega-3s, which is quite good, what we want to see for growth and development. Multivitamins. The pellet size is made smaller and easier for consumption. Yeah, I've completely mentioned that earlier. A tasty fragrance flavour to entice picky fish to eat faster. Well, I think we all know that our goldfish will eat pretty much anything, so I'm not too sure about that one, but I'm sure our goldfish will absolutely love this when we try it out. But I will do, as I said, a video testing this out. So next up, let's have a little look at the ingredients on the back of the package. I will put another picture up on the screen for you so it's nice and clear for you to see, not me just reading it straight off the tub. So as always, when we are selecting a food, we want to see that first few ingredients as protein. We don't want to see gluten, we don't want to see wheat, brewer's yeast, carbohydrates, fillers. We don't want to see any of that within the first few ingredients of the food, because that is not what our main goldfish's diet should consist of. Generally, a more wild counterpart of the goldfish would be eating insect meal, insects, foraging through detritus, having quite a bit of insect and sort of live protein, but also a little bit of foliage vegetation, which is quite hard to get into a food, but the fillers do kind of bulk that up a little bit. So first of all, we've got fish meal. Great to see. I always want to see a type of fish meal as the main ingredient. Obviously, fish meal will contain quite a lot of bones, ash, cartilage, etc. So that is one thing to consider, whether that would be something different like salmon meal or herring meal, for example. But general fish meal is a good start. Next up, we've got krill, which is really good. That is really brilliant to see why the krill is a second ingredient, because krill is an expensive ingredient to add into fish food. Showing that it's the second ingredient on there shows that there's a lot of krill in this food, and a high percentage of this food is made of krill, which probably leads me to expect why the price is slightly higher than a mid-range goldfish food, and that is probably the indication there. Next up, we've got squid liver powder. Now, I've never heard of that one being put in a goldfish food. I assume the squid liver has high protein and a really high fatty acid content. That would be my guess. So I'm guessing that would add to that protein level, which does explain why this has so much protein in it. Although squid and general fish meal and krill is found in our oceans and is not a freshwater protein, it is quite hard to get freshwater proteins into the diet, and when using freshwater proteins, there could be some contamination, some pathogens which could cross over. So I believe there is a high risk using freshwater proteins in goldfish and fish food, so that is why they opt for the salt water, so there is no crossover of pathogens, diseases, etc. Next up, we've got wheat flour, and then soybean meal. So these are definitely the fillers. They still consist quite highly in the diet because they are fairly high up the list, but it is good to see those three other ingredients before we get to those fillers. Next up, we've got fish oil. Fish oil is really good, really high in omega-3, which I guess is why it says this food has high omega-3s in it. Then what else have we got? We've got some calcium, multivitamin, ginger powder, calcium, probiotics and minerals. So all little bits there. They probably consist of a really tiny amount, 1% maybe, or even smaller of the food. And I assume a bit of that calcium is probably coming from the fish meal with the bone level that comes out of the fish meal and the cartilage and etc. So I'm sure that's probably a little bit why that's made up of it. I'm not sure why calcium is kind of mentioned a bit more in the KENTA foods, because it is mentioned in the KENTA gas as well. So I don't know if there is any good reason to have a high level of calcium, because I generally don't see that on other fish foods. I don't know if this high level of calcium is aiding bone development and bone growth. I'm not too sure on that, but it would be interesting to find out. But off the top of my head, I'm not sure why calcium is mentioned a little bit more regular in this KENTA food rather than a standardized food. So they are the ingredients. Next up, we're going to have a look at the nutritional composition, because this is really important. First up, we've got crude protein at 50%. Now that is really, really high. Generally, if you're going to be grooming some goldfish, you do want to have a high protein level to get that growth and development to come on really quickly, to get that wen growth really fast, and to get the body shape and structure to grow and develop. I'd say a high protein level for long periods of time for slightly older fish probably isn't best for their health and could potentially cause some damage to the liver and kidneys. Like with humans, eating high animal proteins all the time is not good for our bodies. So I would say if you have older fish, larger fish, potentially mix this with another fish food and mix it into the diet. Obviously, when feeding younger fish, fry, etc., they are generally eating a high protein diet because they're eating live foods, insects in the wild. They're generally chasing after live beetles, bugs swimming through the water. So I would say for a younger fish, the high protein is definitely something to consider. But for those older fish, older parent fish, probably mix in some other foods into the diet for that. Next up, we got crude fat, 5%, not too high, especially with the level of fish oils, krill meal, fish meal in there. That is surprisingly not too high. I thought it might be a little bit higher. Crude fiber, 5%, that's in line with most other fish foods. And then moisture content, 10% max. I quite like to see a high moisture content, although that moisture is adding to the weight of the food, so kind of decreasing your value for money. The higher moisture content does mean that the nutritional value, the nutritional composition of the food is maintained at a slightly higher level. When you see foods with really low moisture content, it often means they've been dry extracted and dry extruded pellets, which means that the nutritional composition of the pellet isn't quite as strong as it would be of a steam or a wet extrusion process. So the extrusion process is the way that the pellets are formed and developed, and other brands like the Vitalis range generally have a high moisture content because they are cold extruded and they use steam rather than a hot extrusion that dries the pellet out and reduces those micro and macro nutrients. So that is quite good to see that high moisture content. Obviously this is only equating for 70% of the nutritional composition, which is quite interesting because I believe you should have the full 100% breakdown on there, but I'm assuming that other 30% is probably consisted of carbohydrates, ash, maybe some vitamins and minerals as well. So it is good to see that it does have a high protein, quite nice fat, moisture and fiber levels, which is kind of in line with other foods. So to summarize, generally I would say the overview of the KENTA Growth is quite good. I quite like the product, the ingredients look good, the nutritional composition looks good. Obviously it is a premium goldfish food. The only downsides I would say is the sort of high price point and higher price point compared to other goldfish foods or that top range sort of food. So I would say potentially mixing it with some other food might help general hobbyists bring that sort of price point down and spread it over an even load. If you've got a lot of goldfish, you're going to go through this food quite quickly and need quite a lot of tubs. So that is a potential negative, but I do really like that nutritional composition and the ingredients as well. As I said, I haven't tried this food yet, so we will be doing multiple videos trialing it on the Ryukins to let you know if I do see any differences. What I'm going to do is I will do a few videos feeding it to them. I'm not going to feed them any other foods. I want to see if this causes any swim bladder, buoyancy problems. I want to see if it changes the behaviour, the swimming pattern, the colour, the skin quality of the fish. So we're going to be just feeding this until that tub runs out and maybe do a few videos to see if I notice any noticeable differences basically. So I know this has been a slightly long video for just unboxing for some food. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you do have any questions, comments or queries on the KENTA food, please drop them down below and I will do my best to answer them. As always, thank you all for watching. Remember to keep those water changes up and happy fish keeping.